Welcome to the Smart Connector, the podcast that helps entrepreneurs be the leader their ideal people love. Build your influence, wealth and success, attract others for all the right reasons, and become a smart connector, the architect of your amazing business and life.
We humans love to connect through stories. Our brains are emotionally hardwired to respond to and resonate with stories because they mirror universal human themes and struggles, whilst giving us a feeling of safety as an observer. Stories act as warnings, lessons, and signposts. They reflect back things about ourselves that we might not even have known or realized. They show us what might happen when we push ourselves beyond our limits, or when external forces conspire to make our lives harder than we could have imagined. Stories can peel back the curtain to show us supernatural forces of good and evil, battles in otherworldly realms. They can go back and forth and travel forward in time. Nothing is off limits when it comes to our imagination. Using storytelling in business is similarly powerful. It can bypass our clients' rational brains and help them connect at a deeper and more intuitive level with us. And this makes them more likely to pay attention and ignore others who are not able to express themselves in the same powerful way. But that's where a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck. They simply don't know how to use storytelling in their communications. You may have heard of the story brand methodology that was created by the author and brand strategist Donald Miller. He built a messaging framework founded on the principles of storytelling to solve the struggle many entrepreneurs face when trying to create competitive differentials in their business. I spent some time looking at his frameworks, and because I also love literature and creative writing, in preparing for this episode, I also dipped back into some other books I read a while back about narrative structure, such as the Hollywood screenwriting Bible, The Hero's Journey by Christopher Vogler, as well as a book called The 7 Basic Plots, Why We Tell Stories, which is an analysis of stories and their psychological meaning, and which took the author, Christopher Booker, 30 whole years to write. Can you believe? I have a degree in drama and English, so many years back I also studied the works of Shakespeare from both a literary and dramatic perspective. These have some of the finest examples of story structure in them, and having worked for over 20 years at a high level in brand marketing and advertising too, what I wanted to do in this episode is to share some of these lessons and bring them to you in a more simple form. The basic idea of using storytelling is to help your customer understand the benefits of using your products, ideas, or services by making them, rather than you or your business, the hero of your story, with you becoming their guide. Your customers are going to trust a guide who has a plan they believe in. They won't take action to execute this plan, however, unless they're challenged to do this. Every human being is trying to avoid disaster or a tragic ending. So, although the road ahead is fraught with risk, your first role as their guide is to help them understand that staying where they are and not embarking on the journey you've shown them will keep them stuck in the pain and struggle they wanted to escape from. You have to tell them how to get to a better place by following your plan and to issue them warnings to make sure they navigate forward with you by their side. So, nearly every powerful story you see or hear involves the following: a character with a problem meets a guide with a plan that helps them overcome their challenge and calls them to action, resulting in either disaster if they get it wrong or success, which brings them happiness, peace, and a better life for themselves and the world. The Wizard of Oz offers a great example of this. Dorothy is the hero who has a problem. She needs to get home to Kansas after a tornado destroyed her home and whisked her over the rainbow to the magical land of Oz. She meets the good witch who gives her a plan, which is put on the ruby slippers to achieve magical powers and follow the yellow brick road that will take her to a meeting with the ruler of the Emerald City, the all-powerful wizard, who will be able to get her back home to Kansas. There are, of course, many obstacles to be overcome along the way. As Dorothy follows the yellow brick road towards the Emerald City to meet the wizard, she meets other seekers. There's a scarecrow that needs a brain, a tin man that's missing a heart, and a cowardly lion who's looking for courage. There are many saboteurs along the way, too, led by the Wicked Witch of the West and her menacing team of flying monkeys. The wizard, who is at war with the Wicked Witch, then sends the group a terrifying challenge to bring him the broom of the Wicked Witch, without which he will not help them. Eventually, the wizard himself turns out to be an impostor and a fraud and no better than anyone else. And the powerful underlying lesson is not to listen to gurus or believe in silver bullets. There are just processes that need to be followed and obstacles that need to be overcome before a problem can be solved and a better life achieved. The problem they need to overcome is the single most powerful thing you need to know about your client. What are they trying to do over and over again but failing at? What keeps them awake at night? What makes them work so hard that everybody around them is disappointed or upset with them? What's making them neglect their health, well-being, or best interests? When you base your stories around the problem your clients need to overcome, they will resonate powerfully and make them want to engage with you. Now, this problem will usually come in the form of an unmet need because without pain and an unmet need, your clients will not be motivated to act. Just as there's one goal your clients are focused on achieving, there will always be a parallel problem your clients are trying to solve and not succeeding with. And if you can match the problem with your solution, and as long as they trust your process, they will choose you as their guide. Stories are a great way to illustrate your ability to do this. Using an example of the problem your client has, you can tell a story that will connect and resonate with them. Make sure there's a happy ending that has taken place and that took either you or one of your clients beyond the pain they are now finding themselves in. For example, I sometimes talk about my journey as an expert entrepreneur and how hard it was for me to establish credibility and authority despite a high level history of success and achievements that some of the people who were trying to mentor me had never even come close to. And then I realized that I had to find a way to share my story, my successes, challenges, and triumphs with my network. Of course, podcasting is a very effective method to do this, but I also needed to tell my story in other ways and over again, so people understood how and in what ways I could help them achieve their goals. Stories can be used in various different ways to help you promote your business or brand. The first way is in your social media posts. You can tell a story about your past or about something that happened recently to you. You can tell a story about something that happened to someone in your business or one of your customers or even someone in your social circle or family. Remember, the golden rule is that stories have to entertain as well as inform, and they are always more powerful if you follow a proven and recognizable structure. Your testimonials or case studies are often stories of transformation, and that's why they work so well for you. You can tell the story of how your company came into existence, why you are aligned with its values or mission statement, who your first customer was, and what you learned from them. You can use stories in your written or verbal presentations. You can use them on your landing pages or websites, and you can tell jokes, which are just funny stories. How about this one, which illustrates why sometimes our dream life is actually here for us right now? An American businessman was on holiday in Mexico when he saw a fisherman with a boat. Inside the boat was some tuna. The businessman asked the fisherman how long it took him to catch them, and the fisherman said it took a couple of hours. The American asked why didn't he stay out longer and catch more fish, and the fisherman said he had enough to support his family that day, so he came back. The American then said, "Well, what do you do with the rest of your time?" And the fisherman said, "I sleep late, play with my children, take a siesta with my wife, and stroll into the village every evening where I sip wine and play guitar with my amigos." And the American businessman said, "I'm a Harvard MBA graduate and I could help you. Spend more time fishing, sell more fish, and buy a bigger boat. With a bigger boat, you could sell even more fish and go on to buy a fleet of boats. Then you could open one or more tuna canning factories, Leave this small village and move to New York, where you can run your hugely successful empire from." And the fisherman asked him, "Well, how long would this take?" To which the American replied, "Well, 15 or 20 years. "And what would happen then?" the fisherman said. And the American laughed and said, "Well, that's the best part. When the time is right, you'd announce an IPO and sell your company's stock to the public and become very rich. You'd make millions." "Millions? Then what?" the fisherman said. And the American answered, "Well, then you could retire, move to a small fishing village where you could sleep late, play with your grandkids, take a siesta with your wife, and stroll to the village in the evenings where you could sip wine and play guitar with your friends." Did you like that? Now, let's look at some different types of story structure. In Christopher Booker's 7 Basic Plots, he discusses the different types of storyline, which I'm going to go through now and which relate to some stories you'll probably know. The first one is Overcoming the Monster. This is when the hero sets out to defeat an enemy, which threatens the safety of the main character or their homeland. An example of this is The Lion King or Star Wars. The next one is Rags to Riches, where the impoverished hero acquires things such as power, wealth, and a partner before losing it all only to regain it again after growing wiser as a person. An example of this is Dick Whittington. The next one is The Quest. The hero and some friends set out to find an important object or to reach an important destination, facing many obstacles along the way. Examples of this is The Wizard of Oz and Aladdin. The fourth one is Voyage and Return. The hero goes to a strange land and, after overcoming the threats it poses to him or her, returns with precious wealth and experience. An example of this is Gulliver's Travels. The fifth one is comedy. The hero is a light and humorous character with a happy or cheerful ending. Think Elf, Shrek, or the Pink Panther. Then there's tragedy. The hero falls from grace and his or her death is for the best. This plotline is mostly too sad and disturbing for children as it paints a rather dark picture of humanity. The drama The Sopranos is an example of a modern-day tragedy, and it's also why we love stories of criminals like Pablo Escobar, for example. The next one is Rebirth. So the hero does something bad but redeems him or herself over the course of the story. For example, Beauty and the Beast. Many of the best stories use metaphors, and for those of you who are not sure what a metaphor actually is, it's a way of describing something by comparing it to something else. It's a form of what's called pattern interrupt, sparking creative imagination and jolting the brain into a recognition of a truth that it would otherwise have missed. Metaphors make narratives sticky or engaging. Thanks to their visual quality and richness, they turn ordinary words into stories and make them much more powerful. There is really so much more that I could say about stories, but here's a good place to start if you want to use the power of storytelling in your communications. Think of 2 or 3 stories you can tell about yourself or your business and just practice telling them. Make sure there are high points and low points, ones that your customers can identify with and be entertained by. Stories that reveal your values, your priorities, your vulnerabilities and struggle. Stories that tell your customers about your journey and about the authentic you. Perhaps you have a funny story or one that involved risk or struggle. And remember that people love a happy ending and to rejoice with you, so share those stories too. I hope this has been a valuable episode for you and that you're now a little clearer about how to use the power of storytelling in your business. Thank you so much for listening, and I wish you every success on your storytelling journey.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Connector podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, why not head over to janebayler.com and order a copy of my free report on building your personal brand. I'd love to connect with you on social media. And finally, don't forget to like and subscribe to my podcast so that you never miss a show. Thanks for listening in, and see you soon.